is the starting lineup. Here's your host, Carl Schoening.
Welcome into the starting lineup. I'm Carl Schoening, starting at your host, and the voice coming through your speakers. It's a two-man starting lineup today with LG as the studio technician, and it is finally Friday. The 76ers force a Game 7. Duke gets Jeff Bezos' money. The Hawks sleepwalk into their summer vacation, and Kevin Durant is out for Game 6 against the Lakers. But the Spurs' second-round opponent has been determined. The shorthanded Minnesota Timberwolves defeat the banged-up Denver Nuggets to punch their ticket to the second-round date with San Antonio. And that's where we start our show today. LG, you and I watched it together, and I'm kind of scared of the shorthanded Minnesota Timberwolves. They play with such an intensity that their scrappiness alone will possibly steal them a game or two. I'm not necessarily saying that the Spurs are going to lose this series, but you know, we talked about it all week. No Anthony Edwards. He's possibly gone until midway through this series, best case scenario. Dante DiVincenzo is not going to play for the rest of the year, maybe next year because of his Achilles tendon tear. But really, the Minnesota Timberwolves showed that they could play with anybody. Even Ayo Dosunmu was not going to play. We didn't play last night. I don't know what his timetable is, but he has a calf strain. Yet last night, Jaden McDaniels goes off. Terrence Shannon in his first playoff career start goes off. And Rudy Gobert shows that he probably should have finished second in Defensive Player of the Year voting in this series. That I kind of think that Minnesota might, even without Anthony Edwards, be able to push the series to the Spurs with 6.
Well, you know how the saying goes, a wounded animal is the most dangerous kind of animal.
Yeah.
So, and these are the kind of games where you might get complacent. On paper, the Spurs should be able to sweep the Minnesota Timberwolves, but you can't rule out any NBA team in the playoffs. They are professionals. They showed heart against Denver, and as much as I would love a sweep, one of these games could easily slip away.
Here's something that really stood out to me, and this has nothing to do with the talent on the floor. It has everything to do with the hustle. Minnesota grabbed 19 offensive rebounds, and they also kept the Nuggets from grabbing offensive rebounds by getting all but 6 offensive boards, or all but 6 rebounds that were up for grabs. So second chance opportunities tonight last night, I should say, really favoring the Minnesota Timberwolves. They put up 94 field goal attempts, and they shot 19 more field goal attempts than the Denver Nuggets, who only shot 75. So 94 to 75. If you outshoot a team like that, you give yourself a lot of margin for error that kind of could make up for not having 3 of your double-digit scorers.
Absolutely. And if you're the Spurs, you have to hope that Minnesota and Ant-Man doesn't come back for Minnesota too soon. You got to take care of the home court. You get 2 games at home. The first game it's been announced already, the full schedule starting on Monday, May 4th. May the 4th be with you, Star Wars days.
Hey.
And hopefully the Spurs can use the Force and defeat the evil empire of the Minnesota T-Wolves.
That's a killer pun there, LG. But, I think in this case, the Spurs are almost to the Empire, and you'd have to consider the Timberwolves the rebellion.
Are the Spurs the villains of the NBA right now?
I would think that the Spurs are most likely to embrace the villain role.
At least this series, yeah. I think if they do make it to the Western Conference Finals, and so does OKC, I think OKC takes the villain role.
So there was a fairly obscure thing that goes around NBA Twitter called the Ewing theory, and that's a theory that Bill Simmons crafted that based off of that 99 Knicks team that went to the finals to face the Spurs, and of course the Spurs won with Tim Duncan, they went without Patrick Ewing, who got injured early in that playoffs, and they still proceeded to make to the finals. Of course, the Spurs beat them in 5 games in 1999, but the Knicks make it to probably their first finals since the 70s, if I'm not mistaken. So there was this theory that teams sometimes can play better without their best player. And that's something that is possibly sustainable, maybe for a series with the right matchup. I don't see the Spurs blinking. This has been a very much we don't care who's put in front of us, San Antonio Spurs team. We're going to go out there and play hard, and we're going to win. And maybe a couple of those games up in Portland, you don't want to continue that trend of falling behind double digits at halftime, but they showed that that's not too big of a deal. However, Portland, granted, while they're offensively flawed, the Timberwolves are also probably more offensively flawed with all of their injuries. So if the Spurs can do what they do and get rebounds, block shots, and more or less just keep the opponent off of the free throw line, I think that San Antonio probably does sweep this series, maybe before Anthony Edwards gets back. I really hope Ant doesn't rush back because you don't want anything to hurt him long term if he plays on ligament damage that he really avoided to be considered serious. But he doesn't want to
get ligament damage because there was none.
Yeah, he's week to week. It's called a hyperextended knee and a bone bruise, if I'm not mistaken, or it's the combination of the two things. And you just don't want to mess with injuries that don't have your joints moving the way you don't want voluntarily.
Knee injuries are no joke. Just ask Tim Duncan how much it affected his career for a while there. He was suffering for a few years until he went and got magic surgery over in Germany somehow, some stem cell stuff, and it fixed him right up.
Well, that was actually what kept him from playing beyond what he did, because after I believe it was 2016 when he retired, he basically said that he tweaked his knee and he couldn't get the swelling down for months, and that was why he retired, because he really was playing through a swelled knee in the end of his career, and that was it. He said, I'm going to go until the tires fell off, and that was what that was essentially his eventual definition of the tires falling off. So, Anthony Edwards, he has a great young career ahead of him. I hate, and as much as I'm a Spurs fan, and I'm sort of thinking that the Spurs might get a bit of a cakewalk here because of the Anthony Edwards injury, I hate that Anthony Edwards won't play. These are two young faces of the league, Edwards and Victor Wembanyama, meeting up in the playoffs, and it might be when this series is essentially already determined in San Antonio's favor, because I kind of get the feeling the Spurs are going to jump up 3-0, and Anthony Edwards tries to come back for Game 4 ahead of time, and I really hope that the Spurs can just sweep the Timberwolves and Ant doesn't feel pressured to try and come back and help them win like a pivotal Game 5 or something like that.
Yeah, I'm hoping for a complete sweep. Just bring out the brooms already, get the fishing poles ready for Minnesota, and they could, cut a hole in the ice and do some ice fishing up there, because pretty sure it's cold in Minnesota.
Still, what is it? Today's May 1st. Hey, first of the month, y'all. So
I've never been there, so
we might have to look that up. You and I were talking ourselves into going to Denver if that was the second round opponent. But
it's the easier travel destination from San Antonio.
But I have no interest in going to Minnesota.
Not really. No.
What do they have? The Twins game? I hear Target Field's nice, but
yeah, I would go to a baseball game. I mean, I would go if somebody else paid for it.
I like the mountains of Colorado, but I'm pretty sure Minnesota's just a tundra. I feel like maybe I'm stereotyping what Minnesota is, like how people stereotype Texas as like all of West Texas, just, flat land with tumbleweeds. But pretty sure Minnesota's just, 9 months out of the year, a barren wasteland.
I feel like the only reference I have to Minnesota is like Fargo, kind of. I feel like it's just flat snow everywhere, and just not a lot to do. Or what I've seen on TV lately, which isn't good, and it's a topic for another show.
I've probably been to Minnesota, but I'm blanking on it. But I've definitely been to Fargo recently enough in my lifetime to say that I know it's next to Minnesota. Don't give me a geometry or geography test, but don't give me a geometry test either. But basically, I'm pretty sure they're right next to each other, and they might as well be the same state. You're not going to notice a difference between Minnesota and North Dakota. Just barren wasteland. But it is I think we were talking about it. It's an easier drive, but it's a further flight, right? From San Antonio to Denver versus San Antonio, Minnesota. So it's probably not that much of a difference.
Yeah, it's an easier drive just by a couple hours, just because you go right up I-35. So this is technically the I-35 rivalry we got going on here.
I-35 through Kansas and Oklahoma and is it Iowa? And then, because Iowa is their G League team, where I swear I saw Terrence Shannon play a G League game, and I had to look up when. He only played 5 G League games. So I think he played, I don't think he played Austin. I needed to look at the game logs, but I'm pretty sure I saw him in a scout video when I was trying to scout ahead for the Wolves. But Terrence Shannon, yeah, what a game he had. That's a confidence builder. We've talked about confidence builders on this show all the time. Terrence Shannon last night finished in his first NBA career start, 35 minutes. He got 24 points, put up 20 shots, which is probably also a career high. 1 of 7 from 3, but 5 of 5 from the free throw line. He shifts gears so quickly. He used his athleticism. It didn't seem like Denver was ready for it, and they kind of weren't. Denver doesn't really have a rim protector. They don't really have long athletic wings. The Cameron Johnson trade ended up being a disaster despite him having 27 points in the elimination game last night. So in a way, he did go out saying, hey, you guys can't blame me for this one. So shout out to Cameron Johnson for going out that way in that series. Jokic was solid, but Jamal Murray, terrible night. 12 points on 4 of 17 shooting, 0 of 2 from 3. Only got to the free throw line 4 times. Only had 4 assists. So Jamal Murray, if he has a Spurs killer Jamal Murray game where he drops 36, then this series is going 7. He didn't play to the level that Denver needed him tonight. Credit Nikola Jokic. After the game, he put it all on himself. Like, the way Jokic sounded, it might as well have been, hey, it's my fault that I didn't drop 45 and get 15 assists and 20 rebounds. So, Nikola Jokic is always going to be an ultimate team player, but Rudy Gobert made him as pedestrian as you can make Nikola Jokic in this series. So Rudy Gobert, I would assume, is going to guard Victor Wembanyama. We have that fun French connection here. So that's obviously something that is a kind of fun factor into this series that we can sort of say, okay, no Ant Edwards, but Rudy versus the Stifle Tower versus Victor Wembanyama. So is that his nickname? The Stifle Tower? The Stifle Tower.
Oh, yeah, I like that.
Yeah, he's a 4-time Defensive Player of the Year, and he felt he kind of put it out there that he felt a little slighted that he wasn't in the final 3. He finished 4th in Defensive Player of the Year voting this year. And I think he came out with a little bit of a chip on his shoulder this series because of that. They obviously announced the Victor Wembanyama won the Defensive Player of the Year, and I doubt that Rudy would say anything against that, but he sort of felt slighted that he wasn't in the top 3. So it's not necessarily, I know I'm not 1, but I'm definitely not 4. So Rudy Gobert, that'll be an interesting matchup. I think Wemby can kind of win that because of the familiarity. There's a fun video of like a 16-year-old Victor Wembanyama playing one-on-one with Rudy Gobert in his prime when he was at Utah and being age 28 and just winning a Defensive Player of the Year. And Wemby's sort of just messing around and sizing up and knocking down mid-range jumpers on Rudy Gobert. So that's a fun little side story. Those people who have to write articles and people like me now who have to talk about segments. They're
writing Substacks now.
Yeah. We're gonna ask about that, I suppose. But it is an interesting series. We're gonna get a lot of content out of that series, but I get the feeling it's going to be a short series that we get a lot of content out of. And
by the way, Fargo is on the border of North Dakota and Minnesota.
Oh, there you go.
Right on the border.
Like I said, there's no difference between North Dakota and Minnesota. So to my point, Fargo really is like right there on it. So yeah, it's just a tundra. But it's only 18-hour drive. It's probably a 24-hour drive or a 2-day drive if you really want to make it as a Spurs fan that doesn't want to pay $800 through Delta.
Jet fuel is not cheap right now.
Oh my God. We actually did look at it, and that was the only thing we needed to see. You could give us free hotels, and I don't think we would pay $800 a piece to go up there.
If you want to sponsor our flight up there, we will go to the road games and cover this and do shows from Minneapolis.
That sounds like a good idea. I am all for that. But yes, the Spurs do have their second round opponent determined. It is the Minnesota Timberwolves as they win Game 6 against the Denver Nuggets, 110-98 last night in a great game for Terrence Shannon Jr. and Jaden McDaniels as they propel the Timberwolves over the Nuggets. When we come back, we're going to talk about the rest of the action that happened in the NBA playoffs last night. The Atlanta Hawks, oh my God, and the 76ers, oh my God. Next up on the starting lineup.
to the starting lineup.
The starting lineup here on Ticket 760. I'm your host, Carl Schoening, making sure we sound good over the airwaves and look good on YouTube. In the other room is LG. You can get in touch with the show by reaching out to me on Twitter and Instagram at OnAirCarl. That is Carl with a K. On air, Karl. He is at DJ210. DJ LG 210. Yeah.
210.
210. Yeah, we got to make sure we get the difference between the O and the 0 in there. It's 0, like the area code.
And you can follow the show on Twitter as well, or the artist now known as X at TSL760.
And
oh, yeah, we also have a Buy Me a Coffee. If you want to tip this thing, you can hit us up at buymeacoffee.com/thestartinglineup. That's where you can buy us some coffee. Carl needs his caffeine.
I really do. This is the first week on the job for the morning show, and it's been a little bit of an adjustment.
It's been kicking my butt a little bit.
Yeah. Hopefully we'll get better at the whole morning show thing.
I think I have some extra bags under my eyes this week. That's for sure.
I have a little bit of brain mush, is what I like to call it.
However, a little concussed.
Yeah, if I still sound good, wait till I can actually figure out my sleep schedule. That'll be a very nice day when it happens. But part of the reason that my sleep schedule is so off, LG, is because I've been watching and been very excited about all of this NBA playoff action. And one of the things that I've been predicting all week is that with Joel Embiid back, the Philadelphia 76ers will win their first round series against the Boston Celtics.
You have been predicting that. It's on tape. It has been recorded.
There are receipts, and this is totally me being a Philadelphia 76er homer because my family's from Philadelphia.
Yeah.
But it also is based in some basketball knowledge. I wouldn't try and do a hot take for the sake of a hot take. I really do think that the Boston Celtics cut a lot of costs in this sort of gap year where they weren't sure if Jason Tatum was coming back for the full year. And Demetrius Queta is not going to stop Joel Embiid. And the wings for the 76ers overall, aside from maybe Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum on a good night, are better than the rest of the wings for the Boston Celtics. And even going to the backup center matchup, I feel like Andre Drummond's outplaying Nikola Vucevic. And last night, the Philadelphia 76ers forced that Game 7 in Boston, and they have all the momentum. Paul George drops 23 points. Tyrese Maxey, the new franchise player for Philadelphia, it's no longer Joel Embiid, has a game-high 30 points. Joel Embiid does score 19 points on 6 of 18 shooting. He finally knocked down a 3. I hope he stops taking those threes, but he hangs out around the perimeter. VJ Edgecombe had some very athletic plays for 14 points, who, by the way, was rightfully drafted 3rd in the NBA draft after Dylan Harper and before Con Knipple, who eventually won Rookie of the Year. VJ Edgecombe's been exactly what that 76ers team needs all year. And yeah, I want to continue to call my shot and say that is going to be a 7-game series where Philadelphia comes up with a win.
Yeah, I'm going to have to take your word for it because yesterday's game, Philly and Boston was not on regular TV. It was on Peacock.
Yeah. The only reason I have Peacock is to watch the NBA.
Yeah.
It's been an annoying, I'm paying $12 a month for just
I'm not going to subscribe to another streaming service. Give me a free trial. Does Peacock have a free trial?
Yeah, they do.
Okay, I might have to do that then.
They probably have a month free trial if I'm not mistaken.
Okay,
it's pretty generous
1 month
if I remember.
from now, that would get me through the Western Conference. Wouldn't get me through the finals though.
Yeah, and I don't know who has the finals this year. Is it Peacock?
I don't know. Hopefully they don't split it up. I hope it's on like ABC and ESPN.
It's historically been on ABC, but this new deal, it took me a little while to figure out what's going on, and that's really what I have to do. Is I have to go. I already pay a subscription for League Pass, which I guess I should stop because none of those games are on there anymore. I should double check how I paid for League Pass this year because sometimes they take care of codes.
With League Pass, you can't watch the Peacock games?
No.
What?
Yeah, that's considered national television. So you have to, same thing with Amazon Prime, national television.
Peacock is not television, it's streaming service.
You're preaching to the choir here, LG.
Come on now.
I'm very much aware of how annoyed I am to have to pay for these streaming services.
Luckily I have Prime just because I've had it forever because of that sweet overnight shipping, but Other than that, I would. If they didn't have that, I wouldn't have Prime.
Yeah, Prime's going to be a topic of conversation because of what Duke did a little bit later. So stay tuned for the rest of the show on that.
We got Blue Devils talk coming up.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, and I think you and I in the broadcast industry, because that's another passion beyond sports for us, but it involves sports. We knew that something like that was coming with we're gonna talk about with Duke. But yeah, just to kind of wrap up my thoughts on the 76ers and Celtics, that one gets finished up. Game 7 in Boston tomorrow at 6:30. Unfortunately, LG, on NBC/Peacock.
Well, that means it's on NBC, though, right?
So it's on NBC locally, but if our local station here in San Antonio elects not to carry 76ers Boston, it's on up there in the Northeast NBCs. It might not be on in the West Coast NBCs. I think we're a toss-up. Like sometimes we get both games.
If the local NBC affiliate, which is WOAI TV, wants to make money, they better play the NBA game because these are the most watched playoffs in 33 years.
Yeah, and it's funny. I think that's because we're forced to figure out where the game is. We have a little bit of interest in just playing that little
that's
mini
a game in itself.
There.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, that's annoying for the people that aren't basketball junkies who are willing to probably, I don't want to do the math, whatever 12 times 9 is I've dropped on Peacock this year, but that's essentially $120 I'm likely going to spend on just watching the NBA because I don't watch anything on Peacock and I have to watch the NBA. It's my job. I wonder if I'll be able to write that off during tax season. I'll have to look that up.
Yeah, you should be able to. If you've got a real creative accountant, he could help you out.
Yeah, I need the creative accountants. If you want to sponsor the show, I will definitely use you for taxes.
We definitely need a show accountant.
Yes.
Yeah, that would be great.
Please, somebody save me from myself. I failed math. I don't want to talk about that, but I did not fail math. However, too bad. I failed algebra. College algebra, legitimately, I had to find an alternative to. That's the only math that I really failed in my life. However, LG, what is 140 minus 89?
You got me.
Oh, no. I
skipped school too much.
This is embarrassing that I have to pull out my calculator here. The New York Knicks, absolutely, I don't even know.
Oh, that was crazy.
What is the worst thing that we can say on FCC regulated air that would be a butt kicking? Butt kicking isn't enough, and I'm trying to also keep it ready for the kids that are on their way to school.
Yeah, that works.
Now that I've pulled out my calculator, 51 points, LG. That is 51 points that the New York Knicks won by.
I believe it was 83-36 at halftime, the largest halftime lead in NBA history, NBA playoff history.
It was wild, and on top of that, the Hawks jumped out to a 9-5 run. And it was 50-14, I believe, or 50-16 at the end of the first half. Let me see. I have it right here, actually. It's 40-15 was the score at the end of the half.
Well, you know what that was?
That was a disgraceful performance.
So, man, it is so funny, though. I have to give the city of Atlanta so much props. The Hawks went out for Atlanta culture and brought in a different person to perform at the end of every quarter. Lil Boosie was out there. He was sitting courtside. He got to go out on out there and rap. So fans were hyped about that. They really had something to make it an experience of a game 6.
They needed something.
And I felt so bad for all those performers that the Hawks brought in because
at least they had something that was entertaining out there. You know?
That actually, it's one of those games where you knew you lost in the first quarter. So, thank you for those people for continuing to go out there and maybe get booed. If it were Philadelphia, they would have booed everybody off of the court. It was a legitimately embarrassing performance for a team that showed so much promise, and I'm legitimately mad that was not the Atlanta Hawks that we saw all year long because the Spurs have the 20th overall pick, which was the pick that will be swapped from Atlanta to San Antonio. We knew they weren't a second-round playoff team.
Why didn't they just tank, man? Come on, do us a favor. Do us a favor.
Yeah.
You come into the playoffs and perform like that, you should have just tanked. So we got the better pick.
And to their credit, they kind of did tank. They traded Trae Young. They traded Kristaps Porzingis. They kind of just brought on some. They traded for Kuminga. I like that move, but that was part of the Kristaps trade, so I feel like it was a wash at a minimum. But man, Jalen Johnson does have a great season. Onyeka Okongwu, he's kind of their mediocre center that they can upgrade or he can improve. We'll have to see. I love Dyson Daniels. The Atlanta Hawks, they go fishing, and they do it in just ridiculous style that we're going to remember for the rest of the playoffs. It would have been so much better if they lost by 30. But no, they lose by 51, and that is the end of the season for the Atlanta Hawks. The New York Knicks advance, winning that series 4-2. Got to talk Duke. Blue Devils college basketball season isn't until November, but there's some headlines that I want to touch on here where you got Jeff Bezos' money. I want a little bit of Jeff Bezos' money.
Don't we all?
Yeah. Hey, he wouldn't even notice it missing. And on that note, we got to talk about a new show that I'm binging right now that I mentioned earlier in the week, and I got to say, I'm hooked, and I really want to talk about that when we come back as we wrap up hour one here on the starting lineup on Ticket 760.
Start your day with the starting lineup.
We hope you're off to a good start of your day. I'm Carl Schoening, your host of the starting lineup. LG is in the starting lineup with me today. And of course, we talk about the NBA playoffs, but I feel like we got our fill of the NBA playoffs. I kind of want to shift gears to the amateur ranks now, LG. You and I, in what is not really that far of a past life, because we're still doing broadcasting in a way, used to be pretty involved with the UTSA broadcasts. And you know how that's
This
actually
is true. Yeah.
It's actually a very go Roadrunners. It's a very lucrative business. And you and I even discussed how really UTSA sort of they were creating their own ESPN gig, so they sort of needed us to be sort of a cheaper option while they were spending
We were
millions.
transitional employees.
Yeah, we did a great job. However, we were working on a significantly tighter budget for broadcasting. And if we told you how much media broadcasting at a commercial, level that you see like on ESPN costs, let's just say one lens on one of those cameras is worth more than all of the gear that you and I have, right? I think that's fair to say.
It's worth more than I make in a year, that's for sure.
Oh, well, we're talking about when you watch an NBA broadcast, the main broadcast camera has a $250,000 lens on it.
Yeah, at least.
So it's big money. I don't necessarily know how it ends up being such crazy big money, but a lot of it does come down to brandings. And Duke is probably the biggest college basketball brand there is. Debatably, I can hear arguments, but I really do think that the Duke Blue Devils are right up there with anybody. And it was a big thing from Mike Krzyzewski to create a culture that made the Duke Blue Devils very much a NBA farm system. And there's obviously the big North Carolina rivalry. What do you got there?
I got a little Blue Devil gnome.
Oh, really? Oh, that'd be a fun little backdrop for us if you're watching on YouTube, where you can watch us. How do you plug the YouTube, LG? You're the one who knows how to plug it. Great.
Yeah, you can follow this show on YouTube at Starting Lineup Live, as well as all our other socials at Starting Lineup Live.
Yeah, that's how you can check out the show on video if you want to join us after you get out of your car on YouTube, in your office, all those kinds of fun things. So the Blue Devils, yeah, to my point, are one of the biggest brands. However, when it comes to these media rights deals, the AAC controls everything in conference. However, it seems like there was a move where the Blue Devils were able to negotiate out of some of their non-conference games, and they created a multi-year video deal with Amazon. And in partnership with a conglomerate, Prime Video will exclusively present 3 Duke neutral site non-conference games per season over the course of the contract. I don't know how long this contract is. It's probably something that might eventually come out, but this is breaking. So the contract begins next season, 2026-27 season, and it involves games against UConn, which is an Elite Eight rematch, so it's obviously got some eyes going to watch it, reigning national champion Michigan, and Gonzaga, who is not necessarily a blue blood, but obviously a college school out of the Pac-12. And the deal will also present exclusive NIL opportunities to Duke athletes, and there is a plan for a broader retail partnership between the two parties in the future. What exactly? You could play that sound drop again. That is a massive deal for it's a new Wild West of the world, and I don't think anybody realized how much paying these players was going to actually cost. But we did a story earlier in the week about how the early entrants to the NBA draft are at an all-time low. I think we're at 70, roughly. Jonathan Gavoni tweeted this out the other day if you wanted to look it up at Draft Express. But essentially, there's so much money, rightfully so, finally, in college sports that players are staying in college basketball. It's good and it's bad in a way, but in this particular case, Duke is going to be able to probably sign some players to these long-term contracts and say, hey, you could possibly be a top 10 pick in the NBA, so you can have an NBA opt-out, but we'll make it worth your while to get, whatever a Duke education is worth, which is worth a lot, but they're doing so much online schooling, and Duke is probably one of the few schools that actually forces their kids to go to school. But we're talking about in general across college athletics.
Well, here it goes. The dominoes are going to fall now. Who's going to next? We're going to hear the Longhorns signed a big deal with Peacock or something like that.
Oh, I'm sure it's all already in the works. These people are finding ways to fund their programs and
more fragmented ways to get your sports. So I don't like it.
Yeah. And it's not like we were starving for these games to be on air. They were already airing somewhere at the highest level. Like, I think it's very rare for a Duke basketball game. Even if I remember, was it Duke? I think I was broadcasting for Flow Sports. Some of these, it was definitely Kentucky, definitely Seattle. I might not have gotten a Duke game, but Duke might have gone overseas as well. Every 4 years, a basketball program can go international for essentially glorified practices and scrimmages wherever they want to go. It's sort of a nice little trip that's for if you're, once every 4 years, so you're not just the big time program that does it every single year and, you get a free vacation for being there. But like I saw Washington go to Italy. These games are all televised somewhere, is what I'm getting at. I did the random UW versus a bunch of guys trying to make a professional roster in Italy game. So these were going to air. So you're right. There is sort of it's not a cash grab because again, these teams need the money, but those are very
a cash grab for somebody.
It is a cash grab.
For somebody it is.
Yeah. So these are very compelling matchups that Amazon got the rights to, and I have to say kudos to Duke. I want some of Jeff Bezos' money. Did I say that this segment? I definitely said it on the show once or twice.
You've said it a few times.
Yeah. I'm putting it out in the ether that's Amazon sponsors us or something like that.
That'd be
we'll
great.
Take that.
Starting lineup live on Prime.
Yeah, exactly. This is great for college basketball because it'll start to create some money generated into these big blue blood programs, and maybe they have these fringe first rounders deciding that they want to stay at Duke for a couple seasons. This might be sort of what helps, I guess, bring college basketball back to where it has some significant talent who eventually go on to be NBA players and good NBA players after spending 2 or 3 years in college like they used to do back in the 90s and 80s and so on before.
Well, the plus out of all this is Amazon's got the most expensive and best camera gear, the best production trucks of any broadcast company in the entire United States. So,
they did not spare money.
No,
You and I
they
saw
spare
see those
no
up close.
expense. They actually had their 2 trucks testing at the Frost Bank Center before the season started for preseason games, and they have 2 trucks that go to each side of the United States, the West Coast and the East Coast, and the trucks are named Magic and Bird.
I think that's so dope. And it's like Magic is Magic's the West Coast, so
Yep.
it doesn't really live the West Coast, and Bird is the East Coast, so it stays on the East Coast. Like that's also a nice little like reasoning behind the co-names, the names there.
Exactly. That's exactly the reasoning. you
Yeah.
know?
Well,
Irving Magic Johnson.
I wonder if they're going to call the like a Duke bus Krzyzewski. Will Duke have their own production bus? I get the feeling that these are going to be the ESPN the NBA trucks that Prime uses for these Duke games. But yeah, I think this. Congratulations to Duke. I hope Gonzaga, Michigan, and UConn get a trickle amount of this money as well. But yeah, that story came from On3.com, so they're obviously on top of everything that's going on in these NIL worlds. That would also be a good thing for us to bring our buddy Question on for. We keep bringing up Question. He'll get on sometime next week, I hope, because he's in the NIL world. He got a few players drafted out of the NFL draft. He certainly will have some interesting things to add. But I've been binging a show this week, and it's actually made it hard to watch the NBA playoffs. Of course, I picked the NBA playoffs, but now I want to just, when I don't have sports on, want to watch this show. I got to tell you about it. You heard about it earlier in this week, and we also maybe touch on a few other pop culture things that are happening around the world that aren't sports when we come back. Just a quick segment to wrap up hour 1 here on The Starting Lineup.
Your ticket for the best Spurs talk. Back to the starting lineup.
It is the starting lineup on Ticket 760. I'm your host, Carl Schoening. I hope that everybody is staying safe out there amidst this weather. Got a flood watch that you need to be careful for from last night, so there's obviously going to be quite a bit of rain on the roads. The forecast has plenty of rain in store for us this Friday, so be sure to keep an eye on all of that. Stay safe, and I don't know how much turnaround, don't drown helps when you're on 1604, but just be careful anytime you see some maybe hazardous road conditions, and if you don't need to travel and things get worse, just
I was
stay safe.
expecting to get some of these alerts that they were. Remember the last time we had a flood like a week ago? My phone just kept blowing up with these weather alerts. It was crazy.
Yeah, the April showers carrying over in the first day of May. It's a little ridiculous, but I guess we could use it. Texas has been in like a super flood for, I think, 250 years. I heard that one time and it shocked me, but apparently, yeah.
A super flood or a super drought?
Super drought.
Yeah.
Super drought, excuse me.
Say.
Yeah, we could use it. We could use a super flood, but that might actually be worse. We
don't need that.
We don't need
We
that.
had one in 1998 and it didn't do the city too good.
Yeah, we need rain, but we don't need it in bursts like this. If I would trade 30 sunny days for much more water in Central and South Texas. But
We also have
yeah.
a cold front coming in, so hopefully the rain doesn't bring humidity because the cold front will be here. So you get your jacket ready. I heard it's going to be pretty cold.
Yeah, and you bring that up. Saturday looks like it's supposed to be sunny, and San Antonio FC is playing the Colorado Springs Switchbacks. So that'll be a 7:30 kickoff from Toyota Field, something that I'll be on the call with Katie Goodman. Hopefully you join me out there, LG, as you like to run that camera there behind the
I hope I get the
goal.
call.
Yeah.
What is a switchback, by the way?
That's a good question. I should make that part of my research. I'm sure it's in their game notes.
Okay.
I got the call today because I obviously was pretty much on the fence with the Spurs. They understood why I was on the fence because we weren't sure that the playoffs were going to not start on Saturday, but the playoffs have been determined to the second round, I should say, of the playoffs will start on Monday. Spurs and Timberwolves, as the Timberwolves defeat the Denver Nuggets last night, and they win in that series without Anthony Edwards. The Spurs, knock on wood, last time they put out an injury report, there was nothing to report. So
Yeah.
I hope the Spurs are fully healthy when they host on Monday night, but that also leaves me available to call the San Antonio FC game on Saturday night. They're still undefeated at Toyota Field, so the Switchbacks, I feel like I've seen them several times because I've been doing these games for a few years, and I've always enjoyed the game. But it's obviously minor league soccer, so the roster's shuffled up quite a bit over the last few years.
According to the Google machine, a switchback is a 180-degree bend in a road or path, especially one leading up the side of a mountain.
There you go. Makes sense.
Yep, there you go.
Yeah. No, there you go. Minnesota.
That's why
not Minnesota.
That's why
Denver.
it takes longer to get to Denver than it does to drive to Minnesota because you have to hit a bunch of switchbacks.
And this is where my Texan mind forgets that not everything is Texas sometimes. I was in Boone, North Carolina for a Texas State, Appalachian State game, and there's obviously not an airport. If you've heard of Boone, North Carolina, it's probably just because of App State. It's a very small college town tucked away in the mountains of North Carolina. The way we got there as a football team for Texas State was we flew into Tennessee, is it Tri-City or Johnson City, Tennessee? And then we took a scary bus ride charter bus up the mountains, and those very tight, narrow roads. I still have no idea how this day they actually get anything up and down those roads or why they decided to even make those roads and settle in those mountains. I digress, but it was scary. And then after the Texas State game, I volunteered to drive. It's like, it's only 90 miles. It'll be 90 minutes. It was like a 3-hour drive because it was at night, and I was going up windy roads, probably staying under 40 most of the time. So, yeah, switchbacks. Nice to know that that's what it is, like a windy road.
This is an educational program as well, so we like to educate people on vocabulary.
My goodness, I hope Google's right when we do that.
Yeah, you never know with AI these days.
There's that guy from The Current that was very pro. I guess anything the mayor was saying about props.
Mayor OJ, as they're calling her.
Oh goodness! But
Go Spurs, go!
Oh, thanks, Mayor.
Yeah, but like he was arguing with people on X, and he basically put some kind of prompt into the Google AI machine and screenshotted the Google AI as his argument against Spurs fans. And I was just like, that's not very good journalism on your part, dude. You can't trust an AI and screenshot it proudly like that. But I digress. Hopefully,
use your AI responsibly.
Yeah, and hopefully a switchback is what it is. That sounds fair enough. I will double check that it is a winding road up a mountain.
I thought it sounded kind of derogatory when I first heard it. I was like, what is switchback?
It sounds a little like switchblades, which are illegal if I'm not mistaken. So
they are.
So like I need to be careful not to accidentally say switchblades, switchbacks. But I teased something, LG, and you were the maybe person who decided to convince me of this. I have Apple TV on some sort of, I guess, deal. I think I pay $3 a month, which is a nice deal. We'll see how it wraps up. I got so into Your Neighbors and Friends. Is that the name of the show? I'm already on episode 6.
We
I don't
may
even
have to
see
carry it into the next segment.
Yeah, no, for sure. Really, I just got to say, check that out. I didn't mean for that to turn into an SAFC segment, but it is a bit more on brand. We got to talk about this coming up matchup between the San Antonio Spurs and the Minnesota Timberwolves. Round 2 starts Monday, but we talk about that action in hour 2 of the starting lineup.
Your home for Spurs talk. This is the starting lineup with Carl Schoening.
Spurs talk indeed. The second round matchup is determined. The Spurs will be hosting the Minnesota Timberwolves on Monday night at the Frost Bank Center after the T-Wolves knock off the Denver Nuggets 110-98 in Game 6 last night. Minnesota improbably wins that series. I personally thought that the Nuggets were going to be able to force a Game 7 and then take it in Denver this weekend, but nope. It looks like a full weekend off for the Timberwolves, and it'll be just shy of a week off for the San Antonio Spurs after defeating the Portland Trailblazers in 5 games. And we will break down that series right now. I'm your host, Carl Schoening. LG is making sure everybody sounds good and looks good on the broadcast. He's in the starting lineup today. And, you know, LG, I talked about this in the first hour, and I hate that Anthony Edwards isn't going to be in this series, and there's no ever schadenfreude here about an injury, and I feel like I'm walking on eggshells because I don't ever want to make it sound like I'm happy there's an injury, but obviously if you see that there's no Anthony Edwards, you just have to assume within your mind that this is going to be a much easier series for the Spurs than it would be if Ant were healthy and in a rhythm and part of this elimination against the Denver Nuggets. But instead, the Nuggets get eliminated while the Timberwolves don't have Dante DiVincenzo, who's out with a ruptured Achilles for probably the next year. They don't have Anthony Edwards, who's out week to week. And Ayo Dosunmu also was out an hour before the game with a calf strain. But somehow the Timberwolves scrapped their way to the win. And you said it first in the first hour really well. What was it? Something about a wounded animal plays fiercely?
Yeah, a wounded animal is dangerous. They've got nothing to lose. They're trying to survive.
And that's exactly how the Timberwolves played.
The T-Wolves aren't supposed to be there, so they've got nothing to lose. They're going to play their hearts out, and that's the most dangerous situation you can be in. And let's give them the credit. Let's give them their flowers. They defeated the Denver Nuggets, who all these San Antonio Spurs fans were mad at Mitch Johnson for benching all the players in the last game of the season because they wanted the seedings to be different to where the Spurs wouldn't have to match up against the Nuggets at all until maybe a possible Western Conference Finals. But look what happened.
It becomes a moot point. Yeah,
exactly. Look what happened.
So what was it? I believe Wemby sat out because of the rib contusion, correct?
Yes.
So that is understandable to allow Wemby to recover because Look at that. Like you said, not only do the Spurs not run into the Denver Nuggets can't even get past the shorthanded Timberwolves team. And that's sort of disappointing, really. I feel like the Lakers and the Rockets are disappointing, and we're going to talk about that series next segment. But the Timberwolves being able to beat the Denver Nuggets is just so disappointing if you're a Nuggets fan.
That's true, but then again, it's the NBA, and it always comes down to matchups. And this was just not a good matchup for the Nuggets. The T-Wolves, even without their starters, their main starter, their superstar, they were able to pull this off. And that just shows you that it's a game of matchups.
The big thing last night, and talking about matchups, somebody who's really hard to match up for most teams, and he did a great job guarding Nikola Jokic all series, was Rudy Gobert. He had 7 of the 19 offensive rebounds for Minnesota. He grabbed 13 rebounds total. Gobert not asked to be a scorer, but he was a phenomenal defensive anchor. Only scored 10 points in 42 minutes, but he was a plus 11. Jaden McDaniels drops 32 points. That was a game high. And getting his first start, Terrence Shannon Jr. had 24 points for the Timberwolves. And the fact that they find a way to win is really impressive, because the Nuggets, they didn't score 100, sure, but I felt like they weren't necessarily playing bad, except for the real players that they needed to play well, but they were also banged up. They didn't have Aaron Gordon in this game, and Aaron Gordon probably wins them this game if he can play at 75, 80%, but it was a calf strain, and we talk about that all the time, about how you don't want to play on a calf strain because the calf is connected to the Achilles, and that's probably a good, I guess, thought process of you want to protect a major injury by resting a injury that will keep you out a couple weeks.
Yeah,
even in the
I believe
playoffs.
Dylan Harper at the beginning of the season had a calf injury, and he missed, 20 games or something like that to start the season off?
I think he played his first 5, and then he got, calves. It was a calf strain. I believe Wemby also got a calf strain there in November as well. It's an injury you got to take seriously. Kevin Durant famously had a calf strain before tearing his Achilles in the finals against the Raptors. So there is a sort of caution around the entire NBA when you're dealing with calves. That's where a lot of power is generated from when you're exploding for sprints and jumps. So the calf is a protected muscle in the NBA, but there's no excuse. The Timberwolves, they were more shorthanded than the Nuggets. The Nuggets supposedly have somebody who has an argument for the best player in the world in Nikola Jokic, and he is. I'm not taking that away from him. But yeah, Jokic said after the game, it was all on him. He didn't want to throw any of his teammates under the bus. But yeah, Jokic maybe needed to have a 50-point Nikola Jokic game to propel the Nuggets to a victory. Not that he shot poorly. He did go 1 of 5 from 3, and he shot terrible all series long against the Timberwolves, but he did go 11 of 19 overall for his 28 points. And yeah, Nikola Jokic still got 10 assists, still got 9 rebounds, so he almost got his triple-double, but it needed to be one of those. And
if he would have got that triple-double, he would be the all-time leader in triple-doubles.
Oh, for playoffs?
Yeah. I think for NBA.
Oh, just total, ever
the
played?
Total triple-doubles.
I don't necessarily doubt that. that sounds like an accurate stat. I trust you to say that. I don't know that. But
I'm just repeating what Doris Burke said earlier on the broadcast.
Yeah, so. That's interesting because... Yeah, I believe it. If whether or not you want to compare them, because they're obviously two very different players, Nikola Jokic puts up Wilt Chamberlain-like numbers. And obviously they're two different players, but they are the only two players to ever lead the league in rebounds and assists in the same season. So, and they're both tremendous scorers. But yeah, this needed to be a Nikola Jokic, we're going back to Denver for a Game 7 game. And it was just a really good night. It wasn't an all-time great night, and that was why the Nuggets fell. And also because the Timberwolves, they had Rudy Gobert, who made things hard for Jokic all series long. However, Rudy Gobert goes from one all-time great big man that probably tired him out to a future all-time great big man in Victor Wembanyama, someone who is also very different from Nikola Jokic, and he's a bit closer to Wilt Chamberlain in the sense that he's athletic, he's long, he's quicker than Gobert. I'm excited to see that part of the series, but then everywhere else, I feel like the Spurs are just that. I'm not saying that that's particularly close, the Gobert versus Wemby, because I think Wemby is a better player by a good mile, but they at least match up defensively. Interestingly, the Spurs kind of have the advantage in literally every other position after that. Maybe Julius Randle can kind of bully who ends up on him. It could be interesting to see if Wemby starts on Julius Randle and they figure out, like, maybe they go French vanilla. Luke Cornett gets the start and Wemby guards Julius Randle. I'm very curious to see how the Spurs handle sort of a bit more of a traditional power forward like Julius Randle. But when we go back to the regular season matchup, the Timberwolves were the only team that beat the Spurs when the Spurs were up 20 all season long. And that was the January 11th game. That was 104-93. And in that game, the Spurs only scored 18 points in the fourth quarter. So they just, couldn't quite hold on in that game. The game in Minnesota to start off the series was Minnesota by double digits, 125-112 back on November 30th. And the Spurs' only win of the series was a close one, 126-123. And that was a really big night from Victor Wembanyama, 39 points on 12 of 23 shooting and 4 of 9 from 3 while he got to the free throw line 14 times. And he only had 2 blocks, but Wemby was huge that night. I remember that night. He only played 31 minutes and had 39 points. And De'Aaron Fox had 25 points. But that was the sort of effort it took for the Spurs to beat Anthony Edwards when he dropped 55 points. I hate to say this, but Anthony Edwards ain't dropping 55 points in this series. He might not play in this series. So
he's definitely out for game 1 and 2. So there's a chance he comes back for 3 and 4, but that's very doubtful.
He is week to week. I kind of hope he doesn't play to his own future, but if he does play, I hope that it is because he is feeling good and he doesn't get injured more severely. And yeah, I do hope I see Anthony Edwards drop 50, even if it's at the expense of a Spurs loss, just because I feel yeah, that's fair.
He can drop 50, but Spurs still need to win.
Yeah, that's actually even better. There you go. He dropped 55 and the Spurs won 126-123 in the last time that they met in the regular season. So actually, yeah, you're right, LG. How dare I say that? I shouldn't even insinuate that. But it could have been a really good, if everybody were healthy, I would say 7-game series. But now I got to say Spurs gain momentum going into Minneapolis. They win in the first 3 games for sure would be my guess. Maybe it's a gentleman's sweep and the Spurs get to close it out in San Antonio once again. But the San Antonio Spurs second round matchup has been determined. It'll be the Spurs versus the Minnesota Timberwolves. And I'm looking forward to it. Dan Weiss and I will be on the radio broadcast as we hope you guys join us on the ESPN app over terrestrial radio such as WOAI AM 1200. This is AM 760, The Ticket. We talk Spurs, we talk NBA playoffs. I do want to touch on the 76ers one more time, and a couple unique stories around the world of sports that I've been meaning to get to. And congratulations to the Knicks. They finally show up. I don't even think I need to recap that one. 140-89, Knicks beat the Hawks. If you didn't hear that headline, yeah, it's not worth talking about after that. 51-point win for New York as the Knicks move on and maybe find a little momentum going into the second round matchup. Carl Schoening, this is the starting lineup on Ticket 760. Keep tuned in.
and no excuses. Start your day with a starting lineup.
This is the starting lineup on Ticket 760. I'm Carl Schoening, joined in the starting lineup today with LG, making sure we look good on YouTube, sound good over the radio airwaves. LG, how can people interact with the show?
You can interact with the show by jumping in the chat right here on the YouTube channel at Sports Cave Live. You can also hit us up on the Twitters at TSL760 and hit me up on my Twitter at DJLG210.
Did you have a Freudian slip there? I think you were talking about one of your podcasts that you moonlight on with. I might be the side piece here, but you said Sports Cave.
Did I say Sports Cave
What's
Live?
our YouTube?
Our YouTube is at Starting Lineup Live.
There you
See,
go.
we got Sports Cave Live, Starting Lineup Live. It's all in the family here because it's all produced out of LG's house studios.
Yeah, I gotta give a shout out to Puma. I was hoping he would stick around and join us here this morning show, but
he doesn't wake up that early.
No, I understand.
And by the way, I was correct about the Jokic career triple doubles. He has tied in Game 5 of this past series against the T-Wolves. He tied Russell Westbrook's record at 221 career triple doubles for the first place tie. But if he had one more rebound last night, he would have been the all-time leader.
Interesting. Okay, there you go. Yeah, that is interesting, and I like the career totals because we obviously in the NBA sort of separate playoff stats from regular season stats. I get that, but I do like when, for example, Greg Popovich, before he broke the regular season wins award, all of his playoff wins made him the all-time winningest coach overall. Like, he became the all-time winningest playoff coach, and he already had so many wins in the regular season that he already passed Don Nelson, who I believe it was somewhere around over 1,200. We should remember that. Pop obviously didn't have a big celebration for his banner in the rafters at the Frost Bank Center, but it has his win total, and I can't see it from my seat at the radio booth. It's on the other side of the big screen, so I wish I knew that number off the top of my head, but I actually never see that banner and commit it to memory. But Pop, one of those people that benefits like Jokic will eventually, next time Jokic plays a playoff game, I bet you he gets a triple-double and becomes, or might even, regular season game. Next time he plays a regular season game, he could get that triple-double and become the all-time playoff or all-time career triple-double holder. So interesting fact there.
1,390 career wins to lead the NBA, and he's still the reigning winningest coach
and I
of
believe,
all time.
You said 13, right?
1390, yep.
So I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that is just regular season wins. I think...
Okay.
If you look up his regular season and career, you can go to his basketball reference page. It probably is around 14. Yeah. Maybe I'm wrong. I'm wrong. I love me some pop trivia, so I would actually be very interested if you could look that up while I talk about some NBA news and notes. Something that I called earlier in the week just because I believe in the Philadelphia 76ers, and I sort of feel like the Boston Celtics are some fool's gold. The Sixers do force a Game 7, 106-93 victory in Philadelphia last night in Game 6. And Tyrese Maxey was just phenomenal for the 76ers as he drops a game high of 30 points. Joel Embiid finally starting to figure out how to be second fiddle, but he's also sometimes third fiddle as Paul George really creating from the wing, knocked down 5 of his 9 three-pointers, had 23 points in 40 minutes. And now I want to look that up real quick as Paul George has been just a sharp shooter from the three-point line this playoffs. I know he was leading with the three-point percentage in the playoffs going into that game, but overall, this past series to start off the playoffs against Boston, I am doing the math right now on live air. He shot 53% from three. If you're going to get that from Paul George, shooting above 50% from three, the 76ers are going to be a tough team to beat with Joel Embiid back in the lineup, even though he can't run and jump anymore.
1,560 wins if you include the playoffs. He had 170 playoff wins and 1,390 regular season career wins.
Yeah, so back to the Pop. What was the number? His Greg Popovich's total career playoff and regular season wins was
1,560.
1560. That's
Yep.
easy to remember. The
Yep.
760 ticket
Yeah,
760.
there you go.
1560. There you go.
some nasty.
Yes,
And
sir.
that's pretty.
Missed that,
That's a
man.
pretty nasty record right there.
Yeah, El Jefe, very
Yeah,
big
exactly.
figure of a lot of our childhoods and formative years. He was a very great coach, the best coach of all time. I don't think there's any debate, and I'm happy to have that debate with you. But
JC, the T-Man's up in the chat, and he has a prediction. He says Spurs in 3, and he's quoting Skip Bayless apparently.
Skip Bayless said that. That makes sense. The one time that I did that, I never said a team in 3 in my life except for the 2011 Miami Heat. I thought that they were going to wipe the floor with the Dirk Nowitzki Mavericks, and boy, was I wrong. Good for Dallas for getting that one championship. I think Spurs fans are more mad at LeBron James for allowing Dallas to have a championship than they are for any of the playoff series that we had against LeBron James in that rivalry. I want to get into something real quick here. Do we have time, LG? How much time we got? We got a little bit of time.
We got a little time. We got about 4 minutes.
Oh yeah, that'll be perfect here. The NBA, they have these connections with gambling sites, and I'm fine with it. It seems to be something that if we're living in the land of the free, then gambling's part of it, but you sort of don't want people to be necessarily unethical about it. So the NBA asks regulators to tighten restrictions on predictive markets. I thought this was very interesting. The NBA asked the nation's top commodities regulator Thursday to impose tighter restrictions on players, game officials, and team staffs to ensure prediction markets don't undermine sports integrity and fan confidence. The NBA's executive vice president and assistant general counsel, Dan Spillane, wrote a letter to the Commodity Futures Trading Commission. I didn't know that was a thing, that the integrity concerns posed by the prediction markets are similar to those associated with sports betting. So I don't necessarily know the difference between these prediction markets and betting, but it seems like it's gotten to this point where there's so much that you can bet on that the league itself is starting to say, whoever you are regulating this, tone it down a little bit. You don't need to bet on whether Giannis is going to be traded from the Bucks, but I see that's where it is.
Yeah, the prediction market is these crazy prop bets, basically. It's like, what shoes will Dylan Harper wear in the next game? Like what color will they be? You can bet on that. You can create all sorts of crazy bets, and if these sports or prediction books accept it, then you can place a bet.
I see so many that trickle through, and we talked about it, but this is a very big spot where insider trading is running rampant. And you go back to this, the NBA just suspended a player for life. They banned Jonte Porter because he was caught up in some of these. Why are you betting on Jonte Porter so much to score less than 5-point game? It catches the attention. So that's something where, there could be some insider trading where if a player were maybe forced to say, hey, I just put a lot of money that you're going to wear hot pink shoes.
Exactly.
That doesn't need to be a bet.
It's too easy to fix. It's easier than, point shaving in a game or a coach pulling a player out because he's in on some bet. It's way easier to just do a prediction market fix.
That's a little crazy that there would even be bets like that where is LeBron going to wear bright red shoes as a Laker? And because of the NBA rules, they very well could be rocking some Kobe's that he loves that are red.
You can bet on how many plates Red Panda will drop at halftime.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, I'm happy the NBA sent this letter, and I'm happy we talked through it because I am very much aware that if I got into gambling, I might lose all my money. And I suppose that could happen to any of us. Gamble responsibly or predict responsibly, I suppose, in this particular case. Where's the world going? And if you're into that, maybe just don't talk me into doing it with you. I still want to talk a little bit about what I'm binge watching this week, and we wrap up the show by touching a little bit more on some of the things happening in the world of sports. Here on Ticket 760, hope you're staying dry out there on the roads. You know how San Antonio drivers are already crazy. Some of them don't know how to drive in the rain. Some of them act like it's not even raining. Some of them don't even see that big puddle they're heading towards. So just stay safe out there, y'all, here, and keep it tuned in to Ticket 760.
team here. This is the starting lineup with Carl Schoening.
Starting lineup on Ticket 760 resumes. You can be listening to us on the iHeart app. You could be listening to us on good old-fashioned AM radio. You could be watching and listening to us on YouTube. I'm Carl Schoening, LG, making sure we are going out over all of these various platforms and sounding good, looking good while doing it. LG, I missed anything? Are we streaming anywhere else? Or
We are. We're not live stream, but you can rewatch this show on Spotify, on Amazon Music, on Apple Music, and pretty much anywhere else you get your podcast. Spotify actually has video, so you could watch the video of this podcast on Spotify.
That's right. That's right. I am very odd, and it's a shame anytime someone wants to share a playlist with me. I'm on YouTube Music, and I don't think they have podcasts.
Yes, this show is on YouTube Music as well.
Oh, hey, there you go. I'll have to listen to myself a little bit later on the app that I choose. This world's getting divided in so many ways, isn't it?
Yes, but we are providing it on every platform. We're not like the NBA where you have to find a streaming platform and it's not available on another one. We're on all of them.
That being said, if Amazon wants to pay us enough, like they paid the Duke Blue Devils to be just on Amazon,
That's true.
I'm about that. Yeah.
Speaking of where you can find us, JTTX03 found us on the YouTube chat, and he says, always take the under when it comes to Red Panda dropping bowls. Well, I've heard she's kind of off her game lately, to tell you the truth.
Poor Red Panda. She had, if you don't know who Red Panda is, she's been an NBA halftime performer probably since Michael Jordan. She rides a unicycle and she flips bowls onto her head from her feet while riding the unicycle.
It's a very, very excellent skill to have.
I don't know how useful it is, except if you can turn it into an NBA halftime
it's
show.
useful for making money. She made a whole career out of it. One of the greatest halftime shows ever.
And someone stole her unicycle maybe 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And she basically just wasn't the same, and I understand.
She suffered an injury. I believe it was this season. No, it was last season. She suffered an injury. She fell off her unicycle at a halftime show, and she hasn't been the same ever since.
And yeah, that's kind of the crazy thing is that the unicycle, she's back behind the scenes for the real NBA junkies that are into even the halftime shows. You know, Quick Change was really good, but now that I can see it on my big screen TV, I see how the Quick Change works. Yeah. But
she was on NBA 2K, the video game. I think the only two halftime performances that are real that are on NBA 2K was the Jabberwockies and Red Panda.
Yeah. Well, Red Panda is a very much NBA.
They need to retire her leotard, or
they can retire her unicycle.
Yeah, okay, there you go. Retire a bowl or something.
Yeah, because she kicks the bowls onto her head from her unicycle. That is very impressive. There was a lot of letters and numbers. Who gave us the comment on YouTube?
JTTX03.
We appreciate anybody interacting with us. You can interact with me and LG, even if the show is not live. I am on Twitter and Instagram at OnAirCarl. That is Carl with a K, at On Air, KARL. He is at DJLG210.
That's correct.
You know, LG, you were the one who turned me on to the show, and we kind of got lost talking SAFC at the end of the first hour. But I did want to say, you have actually introduced me to one of the shows that I'm very happy that I have several episodes I can binge watch. So I try to keep my binge watching to one episode of one show, maybe half of a second episode if it's longer, maybe two if it's shorter. I don't want to waste too much time binge watching because next thing you know, I've been on the couch for 4 hours. But I've watched, I think, 6 episodes of Your Neighbors and Friends. Is that what?
Your Friends and Neighbors.
Your Friends and Neighbors.
Yep.
Your Friends and Neighbors on Apple. And
starring the great John Hamm and the beautiful Olivia Munn.
Yeah, Olivia Munn, one of the real girlfriends of Aaron Rodgers. And if anybody ever figures out the update on Aaron Rodgers' wife that no one seems to have ever seen or met or anything, please let me know. But Olivia Munn, good for her that she got out of that one. I think Aaron Rodgers, that might have been Aaron Rodgers a few ayahuasca trips ago, but yeah, Olivia Munn always been someone who, she actually, if I'm not mistaken, started on G4, a video game.
Attack of the Show.
Yeah,
with Olivia Munn.
Attack of the Show. Yeah, we're going way back to when we channel surfed. I haven't channel surfed in years.
Such a good channel. Well, the original one, they revamped it, wasn't as good.
No. G4 was a lot of fun. I was very much a video game nerd back in the days, and that's how Olivia Munn started. She's in this show. She has a relationship with John Hamm. It's fun. You get to watch the first episode and you'll get hooked. It's one of the very few shows that I actually say, watch the first episode and you'll get hooked. I think they do it tremendously well. There's voiceovers. There's a lot of fun cinematography. There's maybe the show's not taking itself too seriously, but things that...
It's like dark humor, I would say.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. It's you find it amusing. It's a little bit sad, but they make sad situations funny.
I would say murder, mystery, dark humor.
Yeah, that's fair. That sounds like a good one, although I haven't gotten to any murders yet, so if that's a spoiler, I don't think it's a spoiler. Let's not even tell if it's a spoiler or not.
You got to one in the very first episode, the very first scene.
Oh, you know what? You're right. That is how they hooked me. The rest of the show was so good that I actually didn't realize that that's how they hooked.
Yeah. And it also features a fictional San Antonio Spurs legend.
Yeah, that's right. One of the main characters in the show is fictional, but he played for the Spurs, and he was on the 2003 Spurs championship team in the show. So that actually is a good tie-in to Ticket 760's show here in San Antonio.
And there's a season 2, which is in the works right now. Episodes come out every Friday, and I'm anxiously awaiting the show to come out tonight.
So yeah, that's what I like about binge-watching shows that have already had their first season, and I'm getting caught up as the show continues. I think I did that with The Boys. That's another show that I binge watch. In fact, I have not seen the most recent episode that came out Wednesday for The Boys. That's somewhere on there, but I've gotten too caught up watching Your Friends and Neighbors. So I have a couple shows that I'm keeping up with live right now. Is there anything else that I'm missing? Or is there something that's coming out that's pretty good these days, LG?
No, I wouldn't say you're missing. I don't watch too many shows. I'm watching Paradise right now on Hulu, and that's what I just binged like 4 episodes today. So, but that's it's not in progress. There's 2 seasons and they're both done. So I don't know if the show continues because I haven't finished the 2nd season yet.
I don't have Disney Plus, but the Darth Maul animated series, it sort of scratches at my Star Wars brain. So I might have to re-up on Marvel and / Disney when Marvel movies start to come out. I don't think that there's a Marvel movie that's coming out until July with the new Spider-Man. So I might need to pay for a month of Disney Plus, and we will have in July our update on me binge watching Disney Plus, and maybe we make that our own little sort of side podcast to make some live content about Disney Plus stuff.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I got a free trial for Hulu. That's why I did it, because I don't want to sign up for another streaming service. Like I said earlier, Peacock does have a free trial, by the way. It's only 7 days though, so boo.
Yeah, I need to bounce. Oh, you were talking about that earlier. Yeah, it makes sense because they're. I think it used to be a month once upon a time, and now it's just 7 days.
I just got a month with Hulu, so I'm gonna hold on to that, and I've already canceled it, so I don't have to worry about not canceling it and getting a surprise charge.
Yeah. You forget that you did that. Everybody has that relatable experience. That's right. I signed up for that, and now they're billing me for an annual $400 or what have you. Yeah,
it's the worst.
You need to see if you can get out of that one, get a refund.
That's why when you sign up, immediately cancel your trial, like as soon as you sign up,
before you forget.
Exactly.
That unless you really feel like you might need it, we have a few things that we would like to improve the show with and our social media presence with, but we have to do our research so we're not spending our money in the wrong way. But of course, you can always support us in any which way just by hitting the like, subscribe, listening to us on the iHeart app, all of the above. LG, we have a Buy Me a Coffee now?
Yes, we do. buymeacoffee.com/starting lineup live.
I think I'll be done with coffees by hour 2. I move on to energy drinks. I'm still trying to figure out how I'm going to intake caffeine here on the morning show. We wrap up the starting lineup here on this first Friday edition of the show. If you've been with us all week, thank you so much. We've got one more segment in store. And it has to be Spurs. Love Spurs. We want to talk about the things that intrigue us most in their matchup coming up against the Minnesota Timberwolves, as that series, the NBA playoffs second round, starts Monday in San Antonio at the Frost Bank Center.
The takes are hot, even before the sun comes out. Back to the starting lineup.
I hope the sun comes out today and all that rain stays away, although we could use it here in the Hill Country and South Texas. It's the starting lineup, wrapping up our first week here on Ticket 760. I'm your host, Carl Schoening. LG in the starting lineup with me, making sure we look good on YouTube, sound good over the radio airwaves, and of course, we talk San Antonio Spurs. I could do it for the full 2 hours on this show, to be honest with you, but we obviously mix up some other stuff, and we can't not go into Monday without the excitement of knowing who our second round opponent is. It's been a while since we've had this sort of excitement of having to watch another series play out, LG. You and I were kind of pulling for Denver. Thankfully for our wallets, it ended up being Minnesota because we might have ended up in Denver somehow talking our way into it. But the Timberwolves, they actually have a winning record against the Spurs in the regular season. They went 2-1 in the 3 matchups, and it would have been a great 7-game series if Anthony Edwards were healthy and in a playoff groove, but that just puts a damper on this whole series.
Does it?
For me,
because you want the fully healthy T-Wolves.
I want the basketball fan in me wants the Spurs versus the Timberwolves.
That was
first time.
That was my argument for the Nuggets. I would rather face the Nuggets than a beat up T-Wolves team as a basketball fan, but as a Spurs fan, I couldn't have asked for anything better.
No, it's good news for the Spurs, but at the same time, the Nuggets were so uninspired. They lost last night 110-98 to the Minnesota Timberwolves. And Nikola Jokic, he makes basketball look so easy that it's not like he had a bad game. He just needed to have a great game without Aaron Gordon out there, without Peyton Watson out there. Peyton Watson is going to be a restricted free agent. Denver needs to keep him. They hope for more for Jonas Valanciunas. I think he was banged up too. He only played 4 minutes. And really, overall, Jaden McDaniels sort of took a shot in this series at the Nuggets by saying they don't have any elite defenders. And without Aaron Gordon, they really don't. So even when Gordon did play, he was obviously not 100%. And the Timberwolves just out-hustled the Denver Nuggets, and they didn't deserve to play the Spurs in the second round. That's really what it comes down to. The Nuggets did not earn the right to play the Spurs. And I feel like if that same Nuggets team somehow did squeak out a 7-game series against the banged-up Timberwolves, that would have been a 5-game series. Spurs wrap it up in San Antonio.
Well, let's be fair. The Nuggets didn't perform very well, but they did, they played with heart. They didn't lay an egg out there just like the Hawks
The
did.
Atlanta Hawks.
Like the Hawks did.
There's laying an egg, and then there's never showing up.
Yeah, the Hawks were checked out of that game. They didn't even seem like they wanted to be there. They weren't. They were a wounded animal that was like, just go ahead and kill me instead of fighting for its life.
Yeah, for those of you that didn't notice that the Knicks beat the Hawks by 51 points last night.
The largest halftime lead of any NBA playoffs game in the history of the NBA playoffs. 83-36, I believe it was at halftime. That's ridiculous.
The Knicks, to their credit, shot 59% to finish the game, but they went up at the end of the first quarter, 40-15. The second quarter was 43-21 Knicks. Like you said, it was an 83-36 lead for New York. Atlanta, why couldn't you have played that poor all season and the Spurs had a lottery pick? That's all I got to say. That good for the Knicks for moving on. But back to the Spurs and the Timberwolves, I kind of want to throw out the November 30th game that the Spurs and T-Wolves played.
Why is that?
Because it was November 30th, and I don't think the Spurs realized how good they were.
Yeah, I don't think anybody realized how good they were. That's only barely a month into the season right there. Nobody expected the Spurs to be in the playoffs.
So actually, at the time, I'm looking at it right now, the Spurs lost that game 125-112, and the Spurs were 5-4 on the road at the time. So after the game, their record was almost 500 on the road, and then they were 13-6. I remember that was a big game for the Timberwolves because they had kind of had a rough week after a strong start. T-Wolves were 12-8, but the Spurs ended up being one of the best teams in the NBA on the road, as over the course of the season, the Spurs went 30-12 in their road record games. So after that game, and this is kind of why I want to toss it out, what's the math there? 5-4 to 30-12. That means they only lost 8 games on the road the rest of the season after losing their 5 of their first 11 on the road. So the Spurs became significantly better from that November 30th game. That's why I kind of want to throw that away. Then,
yep, they went undefeated in the whole month of February.
Yeah, the rodeo road trip. And even though a couple of those Austin games were, quote, home games, and I do think that they started the month of February in San Antonio with a couple games, that was very impressive. The Spurs had several road trips that were kind of like the rodeo road trip this season. But the other one I don't want to throw out, I want to point out that according to the probabilities in game flow, the Spurs had a 95% chance to win when it was 91-81 halfway through the fourth quarter. And they were hovering above 90% most of the game because chances to win above 90% most of the game. And that's because the Spurs were just leading handedly. And then a 33-18 point fourth quarter for the Timberwolves. They squeak out to a 104-103 win. I remember thinking that something odd, fishy happened that game. I need to go back and see if I can find the full game film of that one. I want to say that there was a controversial call or two that really helped the Timberwolves.
I'm pretty sure I've got it on DVR.
Right.
I've recorded every single game this season.
Yeah, you probably do. I want to go back and look at that. However, I remember just sort of saying, that was one of 82. And that's not me throwing it out necessarily. That's me saying the Spurs were ahead by so much, and then they just couldn't score in the fourth quarter. And even though there was a controversial call, I wasn't mad about the controversial call because the Spurs didn't even score 20 points in the fourth quarter. That is really how that game goes. I don't want to throw that one out because that was January 11th, and we did know how good the Spurs were. And at the time, the Spurs were 27-12 and 14-7 on the road. And the Timberwolves also had a pretty good record of 26-14 at that point. Then they meet later that week, or a week later exactly, I should say, in San Antonio, the only time that the Timberwolves came to San Antonio, and it was 126-123. That game was wild. That if you're going to watch all of the 3 games highlights, if you only watch one of those 3 games highlights, I should say, watch the 126-123 January 17th matchup, because Anthony Edwards dropped 55 points. Jaden McDaniels had 23 points. For the Spurs, Wembanyama dropped 39 points. De'Aaron Fox had 25 points, and Keldon Johnson had 20 points off of the bench. And the Spurs edge out their only win against the Timberwolves. It was in San Antonio. Spurs have home court advantage in this series. That's a boost to sort of help even out that the Timberwolves are one of the few teams that have a winning record against the Spurs in the regular season. And then just, again, it's a bummer. Ayo Dosunmu might not even play if he has a serious calf strain in those first couple games in San Antonio.
Tough luck, man.
Yeah.
Injuries are part of the game. So.
Very, very much so. The basketball fan in me is bummed, but the Spurs fan in me feels confident that the Spurs are going to be able to come away with a victory in maybe 5 games, because they are scrappy. They find a way to win in Minnesota. They're going to have A-Rod cheering them on the sidelines. Those Minnesota fans are finally happy they can leave their homes and it's not cold because it's May. And it might be 70 degrees the rest of the summer, so good for them as we deal with our extreme heat. And it will be extreme heat in May after these showers and the cold front go away. Spurs in the second round of the NBA playoffs. That series gets started Monday. We will be back on the airwaves Monday with a full preview of the Spurs and the Timberwolves. We'll also talk about all the action over the weekend. We didn't even get to Kevin Durant not playing Game 6 against the Lakers. That series should be wrapped up and will be wrapped up when we come back on Monday. Got to talk that. Thank y'all for tuning in to our first week here on Ticket 760. This is the starting lineup.